Welcome to the High Vibe Show, living the high vibe life with me, your host, Elisa V. And together with my guests, experts in the art of living in a state of high vibration, we have got an amazing show for you today. My passion is to educate and inspire you to raise your frequency to a high vibrational state. Whether you're an awakened soul to the power of your own consciousness as a light being, or you're new to this spiritual path of expansion and growth, which is made possible through vibrating at a high level, you are in the right place. So stay here to experience fun, frequency upgrades now, so you can manifest all you want and help to raise the collective vibration of our wonderful world. Let's hit the restart button and high vibe it together. The High Vibe Show starts now. Hello and welcome to the High Vibe Show. I'm your host, Elisa Valentino, and you can catch me here every first and third Monday of the month, 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern, where we bring you insightful and inspirational information about how to keep yourself in a high vibrational state of love, joy, and abundance. Now, if you're like me, I'm sure you found yourself at one point or another in your life saying to yourself and feeling, things just happen to me, or bad relationships just happen to me, and a whole slew of other things that prevent you from having what it is you really want. But what if you played some part in this unconsciously and unbeknownst to yourself, whereby you were actually attracting these unwanted circumstances? Well, we're going to dive into this idea deeper today with my very special guest, Dr. Rita Louise, author of Dang, It Was Me All Along. Hi, Dr. Rita.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good. How's everything going?
It's good. I wasn't sure if the video was playing and I was like kind of grounding and I'm like, okay, but now you're going to start yawning. And I'm like, okay, don't do that.
So, before we kind of dive into everything, I want our listeners to just have a little bit of background about you and your illustrious career. So, Dr. Rita is the founder of the Institute of Applied Energetics and former host of Just Energy Radio. You're also the author of 6 books, including your current book, Dang, It Was Me All Along, and hundreds of articles that have been published worldwide. You've appeared on film, radio, television, and have spoken at conferences around the world covering topics such as health and healing, relationships, ghosts, intuition, ancient mysteries, and the paranormal. Wow.
Your show is about raising your vibration. And to me, in order to have and maintain that vibration, and I'm sure we're going to get into a lot more depth, it's about doing what you're being drawn to and doing where life is moving you to. And so people ask me, well, what are you working on? What's your 5-year plan? And I'm like, I don't ever know, because something will come up and it's like, hey, this is really interesting, and I'm going to follow this rabbit trail to wherever it's going to go. But I love the journey.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me to, before we, because I have so many questions and so many things I want to talk to you about today. But one of the things I like to ask all my guests, kind of like my little signature question, is what is it about what you do, your vocation, what you're drawn to, that keeps you living in a state of high vibration and that keeps you committed to what you do?
So, I call it my day job. I work as a medical intuitive counselor, and energy medicine practitioner. So I work with clients from around the world over the phone or by Skype or whatever, and help them experience health and healing in their lives on physical, mental, and emotional levels. But I could never be like a regular doctor or a chiropractor where they just see one person after the next person after the next person, because I really enjoy having a lot of variety in my life. And so, I see so many clients a week, and then I write or produce videos or come and do interviews with people like you and really keep it kind of mixed up, and it keeps me going because everything that I do really kind of funnels into this big picture of this is Dr. Rita Louise.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it's the combination of kind of going wherever you're drawn to and having that the different things that you're doing, and not just being in that kind of routine that keeps everything moving and feeling, I guess, inspiring for you.
And
So tell
fresh.
me, yeah. So tell me, what inspired you to write this book? Because I want to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I read it like literally in a day. I took a little break here and there, like, have a drink and deal with my pets. But I just went right through it. And one of the things that I really loved about it, first of all, being in the healing profession myself and coaching, there wasn't anything that was so like, oh, I never heard this before. This is just so, but I just love the way you were able to take these kind of scientific and psychological topics and really bring them to uh, just an easy to understand way, like just such a nice common sense, mixed in with some of the science, the way you explain it is just so easy to understand. And you do it in such a way that, like, I resonated, with so much of what you said and my own journey, and how we can kind of get in our own way and not even know it.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what your inspiration was in writing this book.
So this story is extremely embarrassing. So prior to writing this book, I was dating, well, he moved in with me, this guy. And I started dating him after I dated this other guy, and who I learned the word narcissist at the end of that relationship. And so started doing a lot of investigation into narcissistic relationships and attachment issues and and ended up writing a book called The Dysfunctional Dance of the Empath and Narcissist. So I was finishing that book, and I'm like coming up with a final chapter, and it was a message of hope. And I talk about this new relationship and how great he was. I read it now and I'm like, oh God, what was I thinking? And because he turned out to be a narcissist too. But at the same time, it was during COVID. And so my business wasn't doing good. Energetically, I'm very sensitive, and the vibe on the planet was fear, 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 fear. And it was so hard to be in alignment and to have a high vibration. It was just beyond challenging. And I've learned that when I'm not vibing high, then my business doesn't do good. There's definitely a direct correlation. Yeah. And so the relationship's not doing good. I'm looking at going and getting a day job. I mean, I haven't had a day job in a lot of years. But I was scared, because what do you do when it's falling apart? And this guy was no help, financially, zero help. And got rid of him. And I finally had to ask myself, well, what do you really want? You're in this place where, you got nothing, pretty much. And what do you want? And what I decided was I wanted to be happy, and I wanted to experience inner peace. And that was my total criteria of moving forward. But I didn't know if that was something that you could do or achieve or go after. I mean, I just figured there are happy people, and then there are cranky people like me. And, there's not a whole lot of middle ground. But after not much research, because I love researching, I discovered that it was something that you can bring into your life. And that just kind of set the stage for moving forward with this topic. And as I was researching it, I was incorporating a lot of the ideas into my own life. And so, the book is not just hollow words that I'm sharing with people. These are things that I did and it worked, and my life is totally different.
Hmm. Wow, I love that. And, I can really relate to that because, this whole idea of like, things just happen and we just kind of like, oh, gee, I just met another guy that's just not, making me happy, or I'm in a situation. And, from my own personal experience, having gone through a very bad divorce, 8 years ago, took 2 years. And then there was all these post-divorce issues that were always happening, and I just was in this mindset of being like a victim. And I remember the exact moment, like what you say, like when you start to get clarity about how you have so much more control over your own happiness, because it is possible. And I was walking my dog and I was just lamenting, like, why does this have to happen to me? Why can't he just abide by the agreement? And why do I always have to, go back into court? And why do I have to spend all this money? And I was just, all these whys. And it was like something just happened. And I said, you don't. Like, you don't. If you move your ego out of the way and not be so set on this idea that he's supposed to do something where, he is, and I'm entitled to it and I deserve it, but you don't, no one's forcing you. Let it go. And all these other great things will start to happen because you'll remove the negative energy and you'll just move on to a whole new part of your life. And it was literally during that walk that I said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not going to court. I'm not fighting this. I'm not chatting. I'm not talking. Done. It'll happen. It's all going to come towards me. So is there something, I know you speak about this a little bit in the book, so I'd love you to expand on it. Is there something going on inside of us that is keeping us from feeling contented with ourselves and our lives? Like, why can't we just be? Like, what's going on?
Well, one of the little facts that I discovered was, and I'm trying to think of the name of the study, but it eludes me in the moment. But they concluded that 80% of our thinking is negative. And so, and if we're thinking negative, we're in fear, we have anxiety, we're worrying, and so we're in this bad place. 80% of the time, it's like, holy crap. And
so that's not even conscious, right? I mean, that's like, we don't even know we're doing it, or we don't have something that like stops us to go, whoa, this is what I'm thinking, or this is where my thoughts are going.
Correct. Because many of us live on autopilot. Something happens, we have an emotional reaction to it, and then we respond in whatever way, either healthy or not healthy way, to the situation. And we don't think about it. We just assume, well, this is who I am and this is how life is. And we just accept it as our lot in life and don't realize that we can intervene in that whole thing. But going back to your first question, I really want to make this point. It's like we have those lives because we're so trapped in our negative thinking and don't realize that that's something that can be changed.
Okay, so this is so hard because I know this is like, there's so many factors and there's so many bits of information and thing. But if you could give our listeners maybe like boil it all down to maybe like, a couple of key points or key ways that we could get out of our way. We could stop going on this automatic pilot. We can, stop the negativity from being 80% of the time and interject more positivity. What would that be? How could they improve upon bringing their vibration up and going towards those things that they know they want, but they can't seem to get?
Great question. And to me, the bottom line is really about becoming aware of what's going on inside of your head. So for me, I got rid of that guy and I just kept thinking about him and thinking about him, and it was like, wow, you're thinking about him again. But just the act of being aware that I'm thinking about him stops that forward momentum and gives you the opportunity to maybe think about something else. Maybe go, okay, well, I don't want to think about them. I'm going to go wash the dishes. I'm going to go scrub my floor. I had a very clean house during that period.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me because I do this in my practice too. Like it's sort of if you can stop the momentum for a second, and I remember when we were kids and we learned about like, how to, if God forbid you're in a fire, the stop, drop and roll. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of almost like stop because then you're consciously trying to put a little cog in that wheel that keeps spinning. So it would be the first step really would be to just become aware when you're having thoughts that really aren't serving you, or like you're thinking about this guy, but he's gone. So what's the point of thinking about him? You have so many other like wonderful things you're going to do now that he's gone, as an
Well,
example.
that took a while, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, but it can go in all kinds of different areas, just trying to think, there's something that you need to do, so I mow my lawn and I have a big yard. Not necessarily my favorite thing to do, and so I could sit there and have these negative thoughts about mowing my lawn, or I could sit there and go, okay, you really don't want to do it. And you can have all the negative thoughts you want, but you're just going to go do it and just change the mindset to it. So it doesn't have to be about a person. It could be about a task that we have, or it could be, you're going into a meeting or you have a meeting scheduled and you're scared. And now you have all of this negative thinking. Oh, well, what's going to happen? Oh, well, he's going to say this and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And maybe, but it's just your imagination getting in the middle of the whole thing, kind of riling yourself up. But if you sit there and go, oh yeah, I'm going to a meeting, period. I'm going to a meeting.
So are there maybe some techniques or things like, it sounds like what happens is when we get into these momentum ways of thinking that bring us into negativity or just worry, right? Because if you're going into a meeting, you may not be negative, you might be, but you might also just be worried and what ifs and, catastrophizing what could happen as opposed to just being. Different techniques, like what about things like taking some deep breaths or resetting the brain? How does that fit into getting us out of the negative momentum thinking?
But I have to come back to something you said, and because this is the high vibe show, so I have to say this. If you're worrying, if you're in anxiety, your vibration is going,
Yeah.
and so to me, it's like, do I have a good vibration or do I not have a good vibration? It really doesn't matter what the thoughts are. So I have this new project, and so I bought an old house and I'm restoring the house. And so, and there are days where my brain is like, oh, flooring tile and this and that. And it's on overdrive. And I've come to recognize in the last couple of weeks that even though it's not negative thinking, it's taken me out of my good vibe. And so I think the awareness, there's what you're thinking, but there's also what's going on with your vibration that you should pay attention to. Because if you're interacting, so let's say I'm talking to you and I just noticed that my energy and my vibration goes, because you're a toxic person and you're energy vampiring me, my job for my happiness is to pay attention to that shift, to pay attention to when my vibe is being affected, because I just want to be in a high vibe. And if it's being diminished somewhere or some way, then I need to take a step back and go, wow, I'm feeling a little diminished. What just happened? And do I need to do something to not experience that, change that, whatever it is? So there's the mental awareness, but there's also the awareness of where I'm vibrating.
Yeah, and we can feel that, like it's really all about, like you said, just really getting in touch with yourself and being aware of the thoughts and the feelings and the energy that you're feeling. We know if we stop for a minute, we know when we feel low and heavy and drained. And we know when we feel light and, someone's presence is invigorating us or, just giving us like a, life and breath. So I think really the first step is just this awareness.
Exactly.
And then it's about your thoughts, but it's also in your body. It's to get more conscious of not only what you're thinking, but what you're feeling and what that energy is that is consuming you. Yeah. So
Yep.
we're getting closer to the end, and I would love for you to tell our audience, where they can get in touch with you. I want, and what your sites are and where they can get your book, so that, because I highly recommend it. It's a delightful read and very informative.
Thank you. So all of my books are available on my website, soulhealer.com. Obviously they're all available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble or whatever. If you want an autographed copy, you definitely need to come to my site to get one. And when you're there, there's tons of articles and videos, and there's just all kinds of information on my site. And if this is okay, so on Thursday nights, I do Dr. Rita Live, or no, Thursday nights with Dr. Rita Louise, where I open up the chat and people can write and ask questions about anything except dead people.
And okay, and where is that? Where is it? Where do they
And
find
so the
that?
easiest place for them to find it is on my YouTube channel, which is Just Energy Radio on YouTube. So Just Energy Radio. Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central. It is a lot of fun. You get to hang out with me and my weirdness and get free on-air psychic readings or whatever.
Oh, so it's very it's interactive. They get to
Yes.
actually interact with you and ask questions. And so
Yes.
it's just because you said, you are an energy healer, but they can't ask about dead people. So does that mean you're also a medium? Do you have that?
No, I'm not a medium. And
Okay.
I'll answer anything except questions about dead people. So don't ask me about like, do you have a message for me? It's like, no.
Okay. Okay. So it's all, yeah. Oh no, that sounds fantastic. And really like the last question, is it possible to find or cultivate, joy in our lives? Like, it's just like one of those questions I think people just doubt all the time, especially if they're going through rough times. It's like, I'm never going to be happy. Is it possible?
It is totally possible. And I was a doubter. I was a not believer. And I found that by starting to pay attention, I started employing tools like breathing and tapping and some other meditation-y type tools, that within 6 months, I noticed huge changes, huge changes. And I liken the whole thing to dieting. Dieting is not hard. You just shouldn't eat food. Basically, that's the whole premise of dieting. So it's not like you have to exercise or do all of this stuff. You just don't eat as much food. And this is the same thing. It's a practice. It's the practice of being aware of what's going on in your mind and not just pulling it out of the drawer when you're in a really bad brain place, but doing it a little bit every day, and just having that awareness become part of your life and your lifestyle, because then you can catch it early on. Or if something really does trigger you or create an issue, you don't necessarily hit as big of a downward hole as you might have been earlier before starting this practice.
So it's really about being, daily making a commitment to yourself to understand yourself more and to be aware of what kind of makes you tick. Like what is it about you? It's so sad because with all the different things they teach us in school, right? Most of it is so useless, and it's not about teaching us how to just live with ourselves and about ourselves. And it feels like there's a lot of shifts right now in the world, and with the energy and just everything is kind of coming up a little bit and ascending, where people are becoming more awakened and more aware of just how important that spiritual part of us is, in spite of having to go to work and be a little bit on a hamster wheel. You need to make that time every day for yourself. So mindfulness is so, and on the subject of mindfulness, like you said, it doesn't mean you have to take like an hour and sit in a lotus position and, have the perfect music on. It's just about those small moments throughout your day where you're becoming aware and having awareness and quiet time to just kind of listen to what your mind and your body is telling you.
Well, I mean, for me, I take my dog out, like he goes on a little tether, and I sit out there with him, or else he just stands at the back door. And and so while I'm out there with him, I will spend a few moments working on my mindfulness and breathing and practice using my tools. Or
Yeah.
sometimes I'll do it in my car at a red light, and I find these moments. And so, how long are you at a red light? Not very long.
Yeah.
But it's the perfect opportunity to spend that moment exercising your happiness.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. So, okay, one more time, tell us your website. Just tell us the website again.
Yeah, it's soulhealer.com.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Rita. This was absolutely delightful. Again, your book is Dang, It Was Me All Along with a question mark. And I want to thank all of our listeners today for joining us again on the High Vibe Show. And we will see you all very soon. You've been listening to the High Vibe Show, living the high vibe life. I'm your host, Elisa V, the Queen of High Vibe. Join us every first and third Monday of the month at 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio. This is the place to come for you to have loads of fun, frequency upgrades now, and have great guests to hear all about raising your frequency. For more information, visit hittingtherestartbutton.com. See you next time.